The question needs to be asked whether we could get a surprise on Sunday. Could we be welcoming back a brand new centre forward, or is it still a little too early? All discussed in today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is indeed the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. It is greatly appreciated. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope your week's been very successful indeed. It's now Thursday, which means that we are just a couple of days away from the Premier League's return. Football's the real football, the football that really does count in our worlds these days, is back this weekend. Arsenal, of course, in action on Sunday in the North London derby in one of the biggest, most emotive, chaotic, frenetic fixtures, of course, of the entire season on the calendar. And we're going to have all the build-up and reaction to that game, of course, right here on TGT. Good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Good morning to Paul, to Glenn, to Rich. We've got Paul James as well. We've got Claire, we've got John, we've got Steve and Dara and Maximius. We've got Answer and Tom and Pam. Silky Knowledge and Franklin. Good morning to you, to Mohammed, Shari, Rob, Grantley Poos, and plenty more of you guys and girls in the chat box, as always, as usual. And yes, Freddie, it is chilly. I am cold. I've got the body warmer on this morning. I didn't put the heating on in the downstairs room, so it's cold. Plus, I'm shooting out pretty soon after this show's finished, so I can't waste any time. So it is going to be a slightly shorter show than it is usually today compared to other days, so I do apologise for that. But I've got some appointments this morning and a lot of podcast recordings as well this morning, despite it being a day off. It's a busy one for me. So, yes, thank you for understanding that today's show's a little bit shorter than usual, but I hope you appreciate it all the same. Right, let's jump into today's slide, shall we? We begin with finally, the Arsenal women's team get a positive result and finally end kind of this irritating run of winless games. The draw with Spurs, the defeat to Bayern, the draw with Chelsea, which was arguably a positive result. But overall, it's been a pretty dour period for René Slegers and the women's side. But to get this victory in the Champions League against Real Madrid, Alessia Russo dragging Arsenal to a 2-1 win where she scored both goals, moving Arsenal up in the UEFA Women's Champions League places. They are still in and outside of that top 8 bracket, but do currently still find themselves sitting in 9th place with a really important 6th point now on the board after 4 matches played. So, yeah, really positive result, and one that will hopefully stand them in good stead to kind of boost them forwards and to give them such a springboard, if you like. And it is a really important result that Arsenal got over a Real Madrid side, of course, that they beat on the way to their Champions League victory last season. But getting back to winning ways, really important for the women's team, and congratulations to them last night. Only a couple stories really to discuss with you today, and a kind of circle around the centre forward position on the game on Sunday. We'll have more information, of course, in the coming days. I'll be at Mikel Arteta's press conference tomorrow. Well, of course, we'll be hearing from him in all of his glory about the idea of Gabriel getting injured, international duty, and all of that. So that's going to take a lot more focus in the next couple of days. But the centre forward position does feel like it is the key area right now where most of the conversation and concern is, because at the moment, certainly the understanding, the information, everything that's kind of around at the moment is leading us to think that the most likely starter in that centre forward role on Sunday is going to be Mikel Merino. Not Victor Gyökeres, not Kai Havertz, not Gabriel Jesus, not Leandro Trossard, but the most likely starter at this point in time, it feels like going into Sunday, is going to be Mikel Merino, which I know is not the ideal situation. I know it is a situation that a lot of people would rather not have. However, I would say that I do think the frustration about who is not going to start is leading to kind of hyperbole around the player who is most likely going to start. Because if we're being all very honest with ourselves, Mikel Merino is in decent form. He's a player that scored in big games, in big moments. And let's be real with ourselves. Scored, of course, in that 5-1 aggregate victory over Real Madrid. He scored against Chelsea, he scored against Liverpool. He's pulled up with big goals for Spain as well, of course, against France in last season's or the last tournament in the European Championships to take them through, of course, as they went on to win the competition against England. And so, from that point of view, he does score big goals in big games. He is a very good clinical finisher if you get the ball to him in the right positions. It's up to Arsenal to get the ball to him in those particular positions. But it is still obviously a blow losing and not having available to us so many of our key threatening attacking players. And that is gutting. But I just want to encourage people to be kind of realistic around and also fair to Merino as well and what he has brought to Arsenal in the games that he has played in that centre forward position. Daniel's saying here Merino will do a good job as usual. Clint says Merino hat-trick incoming. Barry says I'm personally happy with Merino at centre forward. I'm glad that there's a lot of positivity in the chat as well. And I think that there is a lot of positivity around him. But overall, we know that we are a smaller sample size of what the broader feeling is of the club and the fan base. And it seems quite scathing of Merino. So let's hope that he can indeed. And I want to kind of read you out a tweet as well from the guys over at Red Action. Of course, we do a lot with Arsenal around their tifos and ticketing and all of that. Because often the threads that they put out before the derby are particularly good. And just to give you some information around kind of the North London derby this weekend, I wanted to read you through some of the insights from Red Action, who say that there is a specific pre-match meeting held last week with the Met and from reps of Arsenal and Spurs, an unusual step as there is normally one for reverse fixtures. But this was the first for the Emirates version. A 4:30 kickoff on Sunday is not popular with the Met, but reluctantly agreed to it when Arsenal agreed to put up extra funds for policing on the day. 400 officers will be on duty, including live facial recognition technology in certain areas to identify any persons with outstanding warrants. Also, the use of DNA spray tagging if there are any large disorder events where individuals can be sprayed for later identification. The first use of this in London. An interesting one. Although there's kind of not a direct answer for them, the factors as to why there is kind of there is no beer BOGOOU promotions on Sunday. The early bird prices are, of course, there as normal, but there's no extra promo for this game. Also, it's worth pointing out, as Red Action does, that there's no overground services to or from Finsbury Park all weekend. So those like myself that like to travel maybe into Finsbury Park and walk will have to go to other train stations because there's no Thameslink line available on the day. If you believe in pre-match karma, then please drop off some items at the food bank, which will be open as usual on the podium level from a few hours before kickoff. And also sharing the messages around kind of supporter engagement, getting involved on the day. We're all desperate to win the big stuff, and we all have our part to play. Football is not a game played on the internet, and this fixture in particular means so much to so many. Give them hell, howl every decision, put pressure on the ref, make home advantage count, get involved. Together we are stronger. And I just love that message. I love it. Howl for every decision. Give them hell. You know, and I really hope that we see a massive atmosphere at the game this weekend. It is really, really, really good. Really, 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 really good. Last story to discuss with you is, of course, the training images that were released from Arsenal yesterday, which included several that did include Gabriel Jesus. Now, I don't know, nor do I think that Gabriel Jesus will be involved on Sunday. I still think he's a little bit away. You might remember that Jurriën Timber, of course, was involved in Arsenal's training for around a month or two before he actually got his first appearance for Arsenal, which happened to be on the final day of the season as well. So, yeah, certainly it's great to see him there. It's great to see him getting closer to that moment. And I really do think that we're in a position here whereby we're going to see a player that has got such hunger and such desire to win, to play, to score, to get involved again with this Arsenal team. And that is going to be a really valuable asset for this team. So fingers crossed, but I'd be very surprised if he is indeed involved in the game. But maybe I'll be proven wrong. I hope I'm proven wrong, but it would be going against all knowledge around kind of rehabilitation and comebacks from serious knee injuries from the integration back into training. But who knows? He is a special player, and maybe he'll be the player, of course, to be back in the squads and helping to deal with Arsenal's striker issues. So let's wait and see what happens there. But you don't need to wait and see to get yourself the best protection that you can get when you are surfing the internet. And that is, of course, through the benefit of NordVPN. And if you go to nordvpn.com/Gooner, you can get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or 2 year plan by going to the link, of course, that is always available at nordvpn.com/Gooner. And you get 4 months extra phone in free on top of that 2 year deal. And I think there's even some Black Friday deals soon coming up. If you go over to nordvpn.com/Gooner as well. So go and get yourself the additional protection that gives you that security, safety, peace of mind while you're surfing the internet as well, with the ability to change your digital location on your laptop, your mobile, or indeed your phone. And of course, shield yourself from those snoopers and criminals that are trying to take your data. Right, let's go to part 2. Your questions and more in this quick episode right after this. Right, this is part 2 of today's show. We'll be tackling some of your thoughts, some of your questions. It is the moment where we put the spotlight on you. So don't hide away. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your questions, your thoughts are on anything that we might have discussed or anything else as well. And I'll do my absolute best to try and tackle as many of them as we can. Let's scroll up, shall we? And let's go to Alan. Says, I'm not rubbing it in, but at 4:12 p.m. in Perth, it is now 28 degrees C, and I'm watching this with a t-shirt on. Good weather for the first test tomorrow. Yeah, for those that enjoy the Ashes, I'm sure you'll have a great time. But it's not 28 degrees here in the UK. It is quite the opposite. But thank you so much, Alan, for making us all very, very jealous, as Amberly says. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Not bitter at all. Not bitter one bit. Stephen says, how do you think Waneri would fare in a centre-forward role option? I genuinely don't know. I genuinely have no idea. But I wouldn't start him in that position for a North London derby for the first time playing that role at a senior level over Merino. I wouldn't do that. That wouldn't be smart, I don't think, to do that at all. Daniel says, is there any chance that we're keeping a few players back secret with a few mind games? Almost certainly, Daniel. Almost certainly. I would feel pretty good about seeing some players that have been injured in that squad. I don't know it for a fact, I will say that. But certainly the information and kind of the feeling around some of the players is that hopefully some of those players that have been out could be back. We could see Martinelli, for instance. We could see Madueke, for instance. Those are the players I'm thinking of more so maybe being a part of the squad. But we'll hear from Arteta tomorrow, and he will give, we hope, more information. But knowing it being a big game and knowing Mikel, it's probably not going to be the case. We might not get it. But maybe we get Madueke back. Maybe we get Martinelli back. That would be great. I don't know that. I'm just speculating based off kind of the feeling around the place at the moment. But maybe we get those players back. Jamie says, hi, Tom. If you could pick any drum and bass artist to do a pre-game show at the North London Derby, who are you choosing and what the songs they're going to play? Well, I think we all know the answer. If you know me and you know who I like the most, I think you know absolutely. By the way, one of the biggest, not drum and bass, but one of the most gutting things about Arsenal not getting to the Champions League final last season was that I would have obviously been in attendance for it and would have been able to see Lincoln Park play right before the Champions League final, which I know is not everybody's cup of tea, but I grew up a lot on Lincoln Park, so that would have been great. And it wouldn't be Pearl Jam, hashtag Danny, but that's a fantastic kind of flashback for the channel for those that remember the whole Pearl Jam situation on the channel. But no, it would be Soft Focus. And I mean, most recently, his new album coming out tomorrow, which for those of you that like your drum and bass, you need to make sure that you're locking in with people like Sub Focus. Go and check out the new album because it is very, 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 very special. And to be honest, when you're talking about kind of build-up songs, the whole album you could play from the singles that are on it and they're out at the moment on that album. There are a number of singles out on that album at the moment. They would all be I nearly swore then. They'd nearly be effing brilliant, is what I nearly said. So, yeah, I'd love that. What I have noticed, what's annoyed me, though, is McDonald's, right? McDonald's, for some reason, and it's annoying when this happens, one of the new songs on that album is now the new McDonald's backing music for their latest advert. And it's so... Original Dawn is the song, and it's a great track, but the fact that that's now the backing music for McDonald's new advert, I'm very curious to know what Nick thinks about that. But yeah, it's just one of those where I heard it and I was like, hold on. This is like an absolute sick D&B banger, and it's backing the McDonald's advert, which was like wonderful. Bashingi says, hey, Tom, why would Tuchel say Miles Lewis-Skelly needs to play more games and then go on to select Stones, who hasn't played a lot of minutes for City? I guess it's to do with kind of the expectations around the different seniorities. Like Stones is obviously an experienced player, the number of caps that he's got. Henderson's kind of similar, whereas Miles Lewis-Skelly, younger player, less seniority, less experience. So it's kind of, there's the difference between those two. It'll be a seniority, leadership, dressing room thing more so than it will be minutes or quality. I think Tuchel would be nuts not to call MLS up for the World Cup, because I think he's probably England's best left back. I just think he's our best left back for me. So, yeah, he's better than Jed Spence. I think Nico O'Reilly is a great player as well, but I think MLS is England's best left back at the moment. So I would absolutely be calling him up. Mark says, how dangerous will it be when Gabby, Gyökeres, Martinelli, Jesus, Madueke, Odegaard, Havertz are fully fit? I mean, very, as long as nobody else has got injured while we're waiting for them to come back, which, of course, has started to happen with Gabriel. So fingers crossed, not too bad. But, yeah, it's scary how good Arsenal could be in the coming weeks, that's for sure. Gooner also says, Tom, where do you think Harun Anousi's level is? Near or far from the level that we... sadly, far from what we need. He's still 17. He's a young player. I'm not sure necessarily if he's going to kind of break through and be a kind of key starter, especially with the players that are already at the club. I think the most likely thing is that he will move on from Arsenal in the next few years. But he provides that depth. He's got quality, and hopefully maybe we'll earn Arsenal a fair chunk of money when he does move on one day. AFC Till I Die says, I saw a few posts that people spotted Martinelli in the background of training photos, but I wasn't 100% sure it was him. What do you think? Yeah, I've also gone through them quite finely, and I don't see it, but maybe, just maybe, he is there. Daniel says, has there been any more news on the stadium expansion? No. And to be honest, when all that kind of broke around Wembley and temporary moves and all of that, whenever I had any conversations around it, it was always kind of dialed down, and that was kind of one proposal that was being looked at. They're investigating it, they're exploring it. It's definitely on the table, but no updates on that side of things at the moment. Couple more questions before we wrap things up here. As I said, it is going to be a shorter 20-minute show today. Shay says, we're definitely not conceding against Spurs. We're definitely conceding against Spurs. Unlikely we'll keep a clean sheet. Oh, Shay's having a wonderfully optimistic morning. Big Smoke says, why is it always our attack players that are injured, mainly only two defenders? It's a snowball effect. You lose one, more pressure's put on others to play more minutes. You lose another, and kind of the feedback loop goes and goes and goes and goes. And so that's kind of why you tend up seeing these things happen in those areas. Lassa says, do you think Arsenal will pay the release clause for Semenyo in January? I don't think so. We've not really seen any concrete evidence that Arsenal are, other than scouting him and being aware of him, which they definitely are, that Arsenal are in the market for a player of that kind of level of funds. You got to think that Arsenal went big in the summer. We didn't manage to sell particularly well. You know, profit and sustainability regulations, FFP, is kind of at its limits really for Arsenal this season in particular. I can't see us really having that financial freedom to do a deal unless we sell. So I'd be very surprised. Cheech says, guess most of us are happy with the Visit Rwanda deal expiring. Yes. Why on earth did I not include that in the slides? I completely slipped my mind. I'll be very honest. Absolutely. Thank you, Cheech, for bringing that up, because I completely forgot about that story. It's a really big story as well, and I think it will please a lot of Arsenal fans. Arsenal and Visit Rwanda are to conclude a landmark 8-season partnership in June of 2026 at the end of this season. They made a full statement on the website and did big up kind of the whole process. I for one, am quite glad that this is coming to an end. I think there's been plenty of very good articles out there that you can go and read which explain why a lot of people are very happy about this coming to an end. Sam Dean's done a couple of really good pieces on it. I think Ihsan Khan's done a piece on it as well. Go and do your research. Go and do your reading around it, but it's definitely a good thing. But who will be Arsenal's next shirt sponsor? Rather kind of sleeve sponsor. There's different rules around front of shirt to sleeve sponsors. There's different rules about different types of advertising that you can have. So I'm curious to see what Arsenal do next on that front. But yeah, that's definitely good news. Mark says, do you think the fans need to side with the players and push for less games in football? I think so. Yeah, certainly. I just don't know what power really that we have. And so that's a frustration. AFC Teledai says, big question, will you be getting GTA 6 when we finally get it? Almost certainly, yeah. But when it will come out eventually, we still don't know. It just keeps getting delayed, doesn't it? It's one of those games that just keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And it affects the wider kind of context of the gaming industry as well, because every other gaming company is going to want to avoid releasing games at the same time as GTA 6. So, yeah, very interesting. Mark says, I say it'll be visit Antarctica. I mean, that's tricky to kind of get on a sleeve, isn't it? I guess we'd have to go all the way around. Like Antarctica, all the way around, just leave. Rwanda's a little bit shorter to write onto a sleeve sponsor. Emily says, not people falling for Rodrigo nonsense again. Oh, goodness me. Surely not. No, I haven't seen any news on Rodrigo, nor do I think Arsenal are going to sign him. So, unfortunately, not for those hoping for that deal. I think you're going to be disappointed. Akintobi says, in hindsight, not registering Jesus for the Champions League now looks like a mistake. He would have been very successful or useful in these games since all of our strikers are injured. So, interesting law change in UEFA. Arsenal can still register Gabriel Jesus for the Champions League, but it would require them to suffer a significant injury. I actually wrote a whole piece about this last week on how Arsenal can still submit a... let me find what the exact ruling is for you. Let's see this. Gabriel Jesus. UEFA. Here we go. So the rule is that Arsenal can... let's find the exact wording of the rule. So they could allow... Clubs could admit a temporary replacement of just one outfield player who is ruled out for an extended period of time of a long-term injury or illness, according to the guidelines. This rule is, however, only applicable up to the 6th match day, which in Arsenal's case would be the Bruges game. Liverpool did this with Federico Chiesa replacing Giovanni Leone, and Chelsea did this replacing Dario Asugo with Facundo Buonanotte. So I don't know if Gabriel Magalhaes's injury is significant enough that it means that we could bring Jesus in. I also think that it would mean that if, say, Gabriel was to return in January, he would be available for the games against Inter and Caira, which Arsenal might turn around and say that they'd rather keep Gabriel registered. So I think if you bring one in for a temporary basis, I'd be curious to see if that's possible. So maybe one to do a little bit more digging around in that story. Right, I've got to shoot. Thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate your time. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning for what is a birthday where I'm going to be working and a press conference, but we'll, of course, get updates on that. So I'm looking forward to it. Should be a good day all the same. So join me tomorrow, but I'm going to be elsewhere today doing some other podcasts and things, all your favorites. For those that listen to some other top pods, you'll hear the dulcet tones of this face for radio. So I look forward to speaking to some other friendly faces, and I'll talk to you all about them tomorrow if you didn't end up meeting them. Right. Thank you so much as always for tuning in, listening. Appreciate your time. Thank you. And goodness me, Mehdi, if you know anything about drum and bass, that's not how you talk about artists and drum and bass. You might have favorites, you might have preferences, but you don't talk about fellow drum and bass artists like that. That's not how the community works, my friend. Got to get a bit of education in drum and bass, mate. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Appreciate your time. Have an absolutely fantastic Thursday. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always,